Solo empezamos a grabar ahora. Bienvenidos a los tres. Welcome, three of you. We're going to start in a minute. We're going to welcome people. Laura, we see you only half of your head. Can you move your camera so we can see your whole face? Okay.
Oh,
great.
Wow.
Great. Maybe you want to move a little bit farther like this, like from here, like this. Okay, great. Cool.
Fantastic.
And so, can you see people?
Yes.
So you can
move
see
my
some
cursor.
And, okay, so we're going to start in 5 minutes. Thank you, three of you. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Thank you, three of you.
You know, we know how to do that, right? They have
Being
fun
supportive of
virtually.
this panel. Okay. Okay.
May this only be the first one.
What time is it right now? You're in Mexico City right now, Laura, right?
In Querétaro, it's near Mexico City at 10:39 in the morning.
Okay. I have 20 to 6 in the evening.
And you, Gaurav?
Mine is 9 in the evening.
9. It's a very funny time difference with India. It's
right. Half
10
hour.
and a half hours. Yes, like I was very shocked 2 days ago when I was counting and found out that it's 10 and a half hours of difference. Yes.
Yeah.
And the whole country is on one time zone, right?
Yes.
Because it's a very big
United
country.
we stand. United we stand.
So those people seem to enjoy themselves.
I know, and it's very early. It's amazing.
Yes.
On Saturday morning they would do that.
Yes. Having breakfast.
I know. So I'm looking around to see if there are familiar faces.
Do you know people in Los Angeles?
You know, it's like a conference where you and I met. You go to a conference, you meet people, and then you go to your own part of the world, and then.
Yeah.
But I travel to the United States very often because with some companies I'm listed as local, as U.S. based.
Oh, really?
Because I divide my time between the United States and Europe.
Wow.
And then, so I kind of look around.
How often are you there in the U.S.?
Every 2 months at least, sometimes more often. Yeah.
That's a lot.
But most of the work I do traveling. I do a lot of coaching on the phone. But I also do training. And when I do training, I travel. Yeah. You travel too, right?
Yes, I travel too, but not, I think though not so much.
Do you come to Germany now?
No, right now I don't have plans yet, but it can happen anytime. Like I work also for the United Nations for Encompass, where I coach officials from the UN Refugee Agency.
Oh, I see. Okay.
In Middle East, in Africa, and South America. And right now they are asking me to facilitate also workshops for people in Europe. And there is one specific office in Bonn, so maybe I will be going to Bonn.
Maybe we'll meet there because I go to climate change office
are you there?
of the UN.
With Encompass?
With Encompass too, yeah.
Okay, so you're already there.
Right. But also not with Encompass, with a different company. I work at UNIDO, but it's in Vienna. I travel to Vienna at least once a month.
Oh, wow.
But it's like 1 hour flight. I mean, being in Berlin, everything is 1 hour flight.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, we need you.
All right, we can chat like forever.
So we're going to start, so we need to ask you, I can mute you, or, yeah, I'm going to mute everybody, okay, sorry. Just before we start. Let's see, now, No, I'm not going to, it's a little bit complicated muting you, so I will not mute you, okay? So we'll leave everybody. So be aware that now everybody's going to be listening what you're saying, okay?
Oh, and what we're thinking.
We have more plates coming.
We can mute ourselves.
Sorry, we ran
We can mute ourselves.
How
do we do that?
The title, I'm with the Center for
Down links.
Okay, we need to.
On links.
Okay, now everybody's muted. Okay.
Okay. And the Center for Nonprofit Management is we are a nonprofit corporation. We have existed for 35 years as an education, consulting, all-around resource for nonprofits in the region. We serve anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 people every year. We're the largest and the oldest around, and I like to think we're the best, but that's a little subjective. So we'd like to welcome you here. We'd like to thank Antioch. This is our 4th class of professional coach certification training taught by Damian Goldvarg. And for the last 3 years, Antioch University has been very generous in allowing us to conduct the program here. And they are wonderful, lovely people. They are also offering you less expensive parking. If you can buy a validation at Antioch's office, which you go out this door and then make a right, and it's at the end of the hallway. It's $7. If you don't have a validation and you exit, it's $12.50. So it's worth the few steps to go get your validation. So anyhow, Antioch has been a lovely partner in this program, and we're very grateful to them. Also, we're thrilled to do this particular session in partnership with the International Coach Federation Los Angeles chapter. I just want to, before I invite Jean to come up, is it Jean or Jeannie? Jean. I just want to tell you that the current coach certification training program that we are in the middle of right now was developed and is facilitated and taught by Damian Goldvarg, who is the current chair of the board of ICF National. And Damian, we're lucky, lives here in LA and has a big heart for the nonprofit sector. And the reason that we do this at the Center for Nonprofit Management is because until recently, coaching has really been the domain of the business sector, corporate sector. And I don't have to tell all of you how impactful it is for individual leaders and groups or whoever receives the coaching. Well, we wanted to bring that to the nonprofit sector. And I'm happy to tell you that interest and awareness and knowledge of coaching is growing day by day. And the center is a provider of executive coaches to the nonprofit sector locally and even beyond, because it's not that easy for nonprofit people to find coaches that are appropriate for them. So we're really thrilled and forever grateful to Damian for the good work that he's doing for the nonprofit sector, at least here in Los Angeles. And with that, I would like to invite Jean to come up and just say a little about International Coach Federation Los Angeles.
Thanks, Lauren. So good morning. It's great to see some familiar faces from ICF LA here, and great to have new faces as well. Some of you have asked me already, what is ICF LA? And it is the local chapter, the Los Angeles chapter of the global organization, which is International Coaching Federation, and which Damian is the president of for the second term. And what we meet once a month. We have a chapter meeting, third Wednesday of every month. We've got Carrie Kish on leadership talking on August 20th, 6:30 to 9:30. We would love to have you come and be a part of this community. Join ICF LA. If any of you here are looking for some continuing education units for today's presentation, it's been approved for 2 core curriculum units. So come see me, give me your email address, and I'll get you a link, which will get you the credits for today. And please, if you have any questions around what ICF LA is or how you can be a part of this community, we are extending ourselves rapidly and doing some really fun things. If you're a new coach or you're thinking about wanting to be a coach, we have something called Cafe Conversations going on all around Los Angeles. It's the members of ICF LA going to a local coffee shop and meeting and chatting with other coaches or people who are interested in coaching. And it's a really informal way to really figure out what all this coaching stuff is about. And if you're already a seasoned coach, it's a great way to network. We're also now hosting a book club. And so we're introducing new kinds of books that are relevant to our careers and then having discussions around them. And in August, we're having it actually at the President's Home, Davia Rivka. So that is all on the website, which is icfla.org. I'm Jean Smith, and if you have any questions, please grab me afterwards or shoot me an email. I'm also online there, and you can just click on that and get an email to me, okay? Thank you, Damian. Thank you, Helen.
I have a request, and that is if you haven't checked in, please come up quietly and tell me who you are. I'd like to know who's here in the room. And finally, I can't emphasize enough what a wonderful, amazing instructor Damian Goldvarg is, and how much he has really given to build the base of coaches here in Los Angeles for the benefit of the nonprofit sector especially, but even beyond that. And with that, Damian, I hope you'll tell people a little bit about your background.
Okay, thank you,
Welcome.
Melinda. Thank you very much. Good morning. I know most of you, not all of you, but from many different places. And what I love about ICF Los Angeles is a space for people to get together. Sometimes the work that we do as coaches can be a little bit isolated with our clients. So ICF LA is an opportunity to get together with your colleagues, to get to know each other, to support each other, and also to build your practice. It's a way to get referrals, sometimes you need to refer some of your clients. Knowing what are your resources in the community makes a big difference. And what is great not only about ICF LA, but ICF as an organization, is that you can do that also globally. Like here, my colleagues, can you hear me? Can you hear me? You are all on mute. So for example, Laura, Sunny, and Gara, who are from Mexico, Germany, and India, they are colleagues of mine that I met personally at different ICF conferences. So, for example, with Laura, we met in Montreal in 2008, and since then we have been friends. We have been working together. She has her own coaching program in Mexico, in Querétaro, and she had invited me over time to be a professor in her coaching program. With Sunny, we met last year in a conference in Washington, D.C., and I had to go to work in Berlin for business, and she was a great host, and she showed me the CD-ROM. We went to a concert, we had a great time, and we became friends. And then with Gaura, we met in Singapore in a conference, how many years ago? 4 years ago. And it was an Asian ICF conference, and since then we have been in touch, communicating. He's currently the president of the India chapter, of Hyderabad chapter in India. And he's a leader for ICF, and he has been involved in many different groups. And these three guys who are here are wonderful, extraordinary people. So I'm very lucky to have them as friends, as colleagues in my life, and it's great that you accepted my invitation. And before we start it today, what I think is important is to get to know each other, because this is one of the richness about ICF Los Angeles, is getting people to know each other. And here I also have participants from three different programs that I am teaching at this time. One is for the Center for Nonprofit Management, one for Kaiser Permanente, and one for USC. And here I have participants from the three programs, so thank you for being here. And I want to ask you to stand up and go to somebody that you don't know and introduce yourself and exchange cards. So to see who you are while you're here. I'm going to do that for 5 minutes, and then we're going to start with our colleagues. So I need to do a little bit of networking before we start, okay? I know you already are doing it with each other, because I know that you already got up inviting Laura to do something for him. And I'm sure that he's going to have Sunny too.
Yes,
very resourceful.
Absolutely looking forward to have Sunny as one of our virtual speakers.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to. I actually loved the New Delhi. I was there 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I want so much to go to India. I've never been there. Yes.
You know, actually, the reason I was there was at the wedding.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow, that must have been wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, Indian weddings are something.
Yes.
Laura, now
Many
you have a
days.
friend here in India. So most welcome to come anytime. Be my guest.
Thank you. Thank you
Sunny,
very
you're
much.
most welcome, Sunny. Next time, whenever you are. I will not say come to my marriage because I don't want to get married very soon. But you're most welcome.
Well, I have to tell you that the couple who got married exactly 3 years ago just welcomed their first child, the son.
Yeah. Look.
It was very auspicious.
Yeah, it is indeed.
Put microphone on mute so that we can hear each other. Damian! 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 No way!
Laura is awesome. Laura is awesome. Laura, shout again, once again. Hear you. 1, 2, 3.
They are so noisy, these Americans.
Nobody's coming to us to introduce themselves.
It sounds like a beehive.
I know.
Okay, everybody, we need you back. Everybody, I need you to go back. When you ask coaches to start speaking, it's very difficult to make them stop. So
Yes, you could, Damian, you could mute. Puedes poner el silencio para que por lo menos nosotros podamos platicar.
Yeah, they are like.
Exactly. Laura, you said it right.
I couldn't have said it better. They're very loud.
So my suggestion is when the person is speaking, the rest, if you want to put yourself in mute when you are not speaking. Okay, like we're going to start with Laura. So all Sunny and Gaura, when you are not speaking, if you can put yourself in mute. Now you are, and then when you are going to speak, you take that away, okay? Okay.
So, Damian.
Okay. So we're going to start with Laura. If everybody get back to your seats, what we're going to do is I ask three of them to present a case. So basically, what we're going to be hearing, we're going to start with Laura. Laura is from Querétaro. We're going to start with her, and she's going to, I asked three of them to talk for 10 minutes, just to present the case. What was the client, what was the intervention, what do they do, and what was the outcome. So that's the structure, and I want you to write some questions you may have, and then we're going to have a dialogue. So the first 30 minutes are 3 presentations, 10 minutes each, and the rest is going to be dialogue between everybody. I want you to pay attention to what questions come up for you, and the second half is involving everybody. So, Laura, are you ready?
I'm ready, yes.
Okay, so do you have in some way, for some reason, the microphone is not coming very high. Let me see here. Can you speak?
Hola. Hi, everybody. Hola. Can you hear me?
We can hear her, can we?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So now, for some reason, your image should come here like the bigger one, but it's not coming that way for some reason. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. Now we want to make this.
And I will share my screen.
Okay. Now you don't need to share your screen. You're fine. Okay. So, Laura, let me introduce you very briefly, and then we can just jump into your work. Laura is from Querétaro, Mexico, and she has been a coach for many years. She worked as an executive coach for many companies, global companies. She had the opportunity to work in Germany for many years. So she had the opportunity to work with some German companies in Mexico. I don't know if the case that you chose is one of them.
Yes.
She wrote a great book that was published last year. It's being translated to English now. It's in the process.
It will be out in 3 weeks in English, yes.
In English. And last year, in the conference that I met Sunny, that I shared with you in Washington, D.C., Laura was one of the presenters at the conference. And she was one of the presenters that got the highest marks in terms of her extraordinary presentation about the work that she does. So it's a really treat to have her with us today. So, Laura, do you want to say anything else about you before you start?
Oh, no, I'm pleased to be with you and pleased to share this case with you. And I hope it will bring you something.
Okay, great. So you can start whenever you want.
Okay, so I start. I will try to share my screen.
No, she's sharing her screen.
Okay.
You're going to be doing like a brief presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Is it okay for everybody?
Yes.
Can you see this? Yes. Okay, so this case I chose to share with you is the case of one client. I had this coaching process with him from June 2012 to January 2013. There were 6 sessions in all, and I call him Ivan the Viking. I will tell you afterwards why I call him that way. He is, since some years, the production director of a car company in which he has got the main production of cars in the whole company. It's a German company based in Mexico. He has got 3,800 reports in 3 shifts. So it's a huge responsibility. And so that you get an idea of how much pressure they have, they produce 1 car per minute. So this is amazing. They produce cars for exporting in the whole world. This guy has been for 25 years in the company. He was 45 years old at that time, and he was agreeing with me that I could share with you all these reports and results, because everything I will show you are the real reports and results he got from the company. So he started his coaching process because he had this, something is going on with my presentation. Okay. He is being assessed in a 360-degree assessment every year as every manager in the company. Everyone who has got from 5 reports to more, they get this leadership 360 once a year. And this leadership 360 consists on evaluating that people that are on his same level, his boss, direct reports, and people from the same level, the colleagues, are assessing him on those points, which are his clarity, the meeting the standards, responsibility, acknowledging people, giving support, commitment, and a global assessment. After that, they see all the managers with all their evaluations, and then depending on the level of seniority of the people, they leave open to their choice if they want to have some support of a coach, or if they are middle managers, they are going to be sent to coaching if the results are not meeting the expectations from the company and the standards from the company. So we can see here a comparative result from 2011 and 2012 when we started the coaching process. So he had been going down and down, and he felt worse and worse in his job and his responsibility. And as he is a director, like on the top of him is only the board of members, the board of directors, which are all Germans. So he was in the last level where you can meet people that are not direct Germans. So having 79, 74, 58 in those ratings was a very bad thing for him, since he has been all his life very much committed to meeting quality, giving results, and he is a very, very straightforward person. That's why I call him the Viking. And after giving those results, the people make some comments. Maybe that's too small for you to read, so I will read some of the main words that the people were saying about him. In 2011, with the question, what are the strengths of your superior in terms of leadership skills, the people were talking about his achievement of objective, determination, strategic vision. He was innovative, he pushes, he doesn't care about his personal popularity, his words and actions are congruent, he promotes continuous improvement. 1 year later, the people were talking about achievement, clear goals, that he was indefatigable, strategic, visionary, his professionalism, and the energy he puts in all his actions. But then there were 2 other questions that people were filling with personal comments, which were like this ones. What aspects of your superior's leadership style are critical? And the people in 2011 were saying the bad temper, the mood swings, the lack of communication, the relationship between superior and collaborator, the abuse of his subordinates, the authoritarianism, the terrible working environment, the lack of motivation, lack of warmth. In 2012, it got a little bit harder, the evaluation, and saying the autocratic leadership applied in some situation. His way of treating his collaborators is very harsh. The environment is very tense, too stressful. He's intolerant, humiliating, arrogant, expresses negative prejudice without having in-depth information. So that was not very inspiring for him when he got those results. And then the third question was, so general comments. In 2011, the people were giving comments like lack of motivation, that he's looking for perfection, that people were talking that they didn't have any contact with him at all in the time they were assessing him, so he was not even having communication with them. Some others were saying he ought to be capable of combining the focus on results with employee motivation instead of putting pressure on them by means of coercion. The leadership style, it's not correct. The working environment is very stressful. The way he treats his subordinates, he makes impossible things possible, which was a positive comment. And then on 2012, they were saying the way the manager treats his team, he is committed, he is a leader I can learn a lot from, and I admire his strength and commitment. So there were some positive and not so positive comments on him. But then it was June of 2012 when he gets these results, and he starts thinking he is quite tired of having those results. And in the very first session, he shared with me some things like he would walk in the production line, which is amazingly long, like it's like a big city, those plants. And he said that he could always feel, as soon as he started working in the production, he was seeing as in a film how the people were hiding when they saw him coming. And so he was really the terror of the company. And after some time, from another collaborator, I heard that he had been called the Hitler, the Nazi, and things like that. So he is a Mexican, and he was more Nazi than the former Nazis in Germany. And that was the way he found to survive in a company where he had so many expectations and where he thought there was no other way to work or no other way. But he was very stressed as well. He didn't sleep at night. He was feeling this pressure much higher every day, and he didn't want to go on like this. So he decided himself to go to coaching, and he went to human resources to ask for a coach because he wanted to move something. So that was a very important starting point for him to decide by himself to work.
Laura, let me interrupt you for a sec, because we already have the 10 minutes for your presentation, but we want to know what happened, don't we?
Yeah.
So let's just, in terms of time management, maybe if you can spend the next 10 minutes at the most to finish the case, would that be possible?
I just wanted to share then.
So let's use another 10 minutes if you need, but let's see that we don't go further than that, because if not, we'll not have enough time for discussion.
Okay. So in that case, what I was working with him was using this model I'm showing right now. He was placed like in this part of the model, in which he was in a kind of polarity of looking and being very distant to people and emotionally distant. He was looking and searching for change, and he was pushing very hard and being, like a Viking. This is like the metaphor I use. And he was mostly having those problems with the people who have the opposite polarity, which are the Mayans. So he had been playing a game of pressuring and imposing and being coercive to those people. So in the coaching process, what we did was to let him see what was the core of his attitude toward this being a Viking. And he was dealing with this Viking inside of him, talking with the inner voices he had, until he learned to be much more friendly, like a desert warrior, and afterwards started developing himself in terms of integrating all those polarities that he hadn't been watching, observing, or embracing in himself. So it was one of the deepest cases I have had, with the most transformation from the very first session on. He went into transforming himself until he found at the very last time, when he got the evaluation after many months, the next year, he got these ratings. So it was really amazing, the work he did, and how the people thought about him on his leadership, the way he learned to understand, and like the pressure and the results, they were still given, but he became human for them and for himself. He was deciding to be a happy person and to foster happiness in the people around him. And so he managed that for 1 year later. So that's what I was wanting to share with you.
Do you want to share a little bit more before we move to Sunny about what were your interventions? What did you do with him? How did you get to these great results?
How did we do talking with his inner selves or inner voices? And he was over-identified with this personality of the authoritarian dictator. And so he learned to watch and observe this personality as just one way that could be a way of responding. And he was getting unattached to that way, and he was embracing other parts of himself, like the compassionate or the understanding guy who lived also inside of him, and this person who was wishing to be a happy person and to foster also fulfillment in the people around him. So he had been working on his anger management a lot. He worked very consciously, like there was one anecdote, very, very small. He found out what was to be this Viking, how it felt in his body, how he was breathing when he was inhabited by that Viking. And he said that he started realizing that when something didn't go on the way he wanted at once, he started feeling in his head how he would become red, and the temperature went higher and higher. And when he felt that his both ears were completely red, he knew it was already not under control anymore. And so he stood up in the meeting, and instead of start shouting to the people, he went to the bathroom, took some cold water to the ears. So until he felt that the ears were not red anymore, then he came back to the meeting room. And that was one of the many ways he started controlling his impulse to shout, to scream, and humiliate people. And afterwards, he would dare to share to the people. He would be doing that work, and he needed support from them. So from that warrior who was trying to be the perfect and the one who knew everything, he was asking the others, please help me to be able and to be more human with you. So as soon as he got to that level, the people started joking to him. The people started working to him and making like a network of support. So they started making jokes like, look at your ear, and things like that. So yes, so he made it fun, and he made it collaborative, and he asked also his son and his daughter to help him doing that. So he got a whole community to support him, and that's why he got that amazing result. He knew that he was not by his own as he did before.
Thank you very much. Let's And yesterday in the class here, we were talking about emotional intelligence. And I have been talking in different programs about emotional intelligence. So you may sound that familiar that many times when we work with our clients, we need to deal with emotions. And that's what.
Hey, Laura, great listening to you always.
Good job.
Okay. So thank you, Laura. Let's go to Sunny. Hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. So let me tell you more about Sunny. Sunny, for me, is one of the most interesting people that I have met in my life.
Goodness.
Her family is from China, but they immigrated into Russia when she was a child. So she grew up in Russia, and she studied in the United States.
Wow.
And so she has this background where she lives in Germany, so she works in German. Her family, her kids, everybody's in Germany, in Berlin, where I had a chance to meet her last year. But in her background, she speaks fluently.
I lost you.
Can you hear me?
I lost you.
Hello?
Can you hear me? You gonna hear me?
Damian!
Hey.
Isn't she interesting? Damian
What are you
told
talking
everyone
about?
she's
What are
the
you
most
talking
interesting
about?
lady.
You cannot hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me
I
now?
can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, good.
It's on
Damian, you
purpose.
were right. Damian, you were right when you said she's really interesting.
Yes, wow.
Okay.
Now he told all the secrets, right?
I
Yes.
know. This is where East meets West.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. What I was saying is that her family from China. She speaks a little.
No, I heard it. That's fine. You don't have to repeat it. That's fine.
But so
Yeah.
she speaks perfect Russian, German, English, and she works globally, and she spent a lot of time in the United States and in Germany. And she works with globally, and one of her areas of expertise is working globally and global cultural competence. So thank you, Sunny, for being here with us today. And we're all ready to, I don't know if you want to say anything else about you before you start. And
I do. First of all, I want to thank you. It is my pleasure and my honor to be here. I do support all the work that you're doing. Yes, I do work with international companies, but my passion is with international organizations. Work a lot with nonprofits, work a lot pro bono. What Damian told you about my background, and he didn't say that. The home is actually in the United States, but the heart is there. But I live everywhere where life brings me. So now life has brought me to Germany, and right now I'm based in Berlin, Germany. And I work as a global executive coach. It's global executive because I work exclusively with international companies and organizations. My niche is leadership and multicultural team building. So the case that I want to present is actually an ongoing coaching assignment that I am engaged in right now, but I thought I would share it with you because of the complexity of it. I will, of course, use fake names, but use the country and as it is. So I got an assignment from a German bank, the home base here in Berlin, but for a head office in Africa, in Senegal. Senegal is a French-speaking African country. This is very important. It will come in a second. The head of the office, the branch manager, is actually a German man. I think he's 51, 52 years old. The local head of the office is a woman, a local woman. Let's call her Renee, and she's 48 years old. This will come into picture in a second. She didn't ask for coaching. The head of the office, whose name is Stefan asked for a coach for Renee because a 360 degrees assessment was performed in the company, and Renee's feedback from the direct manager was she is insecure, she is ambiguous, she needs to develop her self-esteem, and she needs to develop her assertiveness. I thought interesting. What happened from the office from her direct reports was that she's harsh, direct, they don't feel supported, and they don't feel connected. And I thought this is very interesting because this is one person and it comes in so on such polarity. At the beginning of assignment, you first have a discovery session whether we can work with the client. So yes, Renee and I connected, it clicked right away. Within 20 minutes, it was clear we will work together. The second session is with the coachee and the actual client who hired me, but I think actually the stakeholder. And the stakeholder was Stefan. And here's what came out. Renee speaks very good English, but she asked coaching in German. Fine. She speaks very, very good German. She actually got trained as an interpreter here in Germany. And she speaks German to Stefan in the office, but she speaks French to her staff. And here is what happens. When she speaks German, her mindset is still in the French mode, which means that the style of communication, going from what is expected by Stefan, because she speaks very good German, going around and around and around, because of course being also a female, being in 48 years old, having experience, she feels that this is what is important to add to the picture. And then he interrupts her, get to the point, too much information. And she freezes. And then she turns around and she goes and speaks to her staff, and she speaks French. But she has just been in the office of her head manager, and she was talking German. And so this code switching, and this is where we started. After this stakeholder meeting, I can't say it was clear, because you can never go into a coaching assignment with an assumption. I thought this is what I want to explore. I want to explore how she talks. And we did one session in English, which is a neutral language in her office. And this is where it came out. This is where it came out that she could actually, by speaking English, she could step out of herself, of her own mindset when she speaks German and when she speaks French. I supported her. I did not tell her what was happening. I led her with questions, of course. So tell me about the last conflict. Tell me about the last conflict with Stefan in his office. And she was telling me that there was a project about education, and he was asking for the number of the classrooms that are being built and number of schools and how much investment and what will be returned, because this is what the head office here in Berlin was asking for. And her heart was really in those schools, and she was talking how important it is for that region of Senegal, because the southern border of Senegal is in local war. There are two tribes in warring. I actually didn't know, because I thought it was quite peaceful country. But no, she said there is a war going on for 50 years already. They call it a war, but it's local conflict. But it's very, very important to build those schools, because that will promote peace. That's what the hope is. As a mother, that's how she feels. And that's what she brings to the office. But that's what she could tell me in English. But she goes, okay, let's go back to German. And she starts speaking German, and she goes back into, this is important, this is important, this is important. And I go, where are the numbers? And she goes, oh, that's right, the numbers. So she goes, she turns around, goes to a different room, and there is the staff, I think, of 15, 17 people, mixed female, male. And she goes, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, without starting with building a relationship. How was your weekend? How is the family? How are the children? Ramadan right now is going on. How was your night? Which is very important. And now, at 9 o'clock in the morning, how much have we of investment have we utilized in that area? How much have we left? How much do we need for the equipment? How many classrooms need to be built? And they will stare at her and go, Renee, hello? We're talking about children. We're talking about families. We're talking about children going to school. Can you change your tone? So she found herself in this very tight place. And moving her out of these two languages, because I heard her speaking French. I asked her to do this in French. I asked her to do this in German. And then I asked her to do the same thing in English. And by doing this, she herself saw the difference, what it is and what is needed. So this was one intervention. I used her language knowledge. The other one was I worked with her values. Identify your values. And the values were in the family. The values were in the relationship. The values were in education. And she said to me, well, but my boss and my head office in Berlin is expecting me to be strong. And I said, no, you will be effective when you are authentic. So these two issues we're working on. What are the values and where exactly you are? And then actually it doesn't matter which language you speak. As long as you don't try to fit in, what is it that comes out from the heart? And then if it was, because we also worked in the middle for preparation for a big fundraising event, and fundraising event was for the investors here, of course not here, they're in Africa, and the international investors. And of course the delivery was supposed to be different, but the point was, how do you deliver? What is important? And like I said, the coaching right now is still ongoing. The feedback from Stefan to me personally was already, I don't recognize Renee. She's a completely different person. She is more approachable for the staff, but it is easier for me to communicate with her, she said to me. Having said that, of course, things never achieved so quickly because, of course, there are setbacks. And the setbacks, and this is where going back to the values. Because, of course, there are many models for coaching. And at the beginning of the session, I sort of tried to figure out what is it important. And in this particular session, what was important for me is identify the values and see when the values are not recognized. So she moves from her very strict banking, German bank environment, office environment. She gets into her car. Half an hour later, she is back in her home where she is a wife, a mother, a head of the household, and a daughter. 93-year-old mother lives there. And by the end of the weekend, because we had sessions on, it's actually a long weekend. They would take Friday off. She would come back to the office on Saturday, and on Sunday they will take off again because it's a European office. So it's kind of mixed. It's a Muslim country. But we had sessions on Mondays. We had sessions on Thursdays. And on Monday was the most difficult. Mondays are the most difficult days for her because it's like, whoa, it's where am I again? What am I doing? What is it? And she goes, am I playing a role again? And this is, what is it? Renee, what is important? What is it important for you? What is it that you find important in the work that you do in the office, but you don't stop being Renee when you go back home? So what is important in the office still remains at home, but how does it show itself?
Can we use a couple of minutes to wrap up?
Yes, and the wrap up, I'm open to questions because, of course, there is much, much more to it. The wrap up is there are many models, coaching models, and the coaching models really I feel that the whole assignment with Renee is 8 sessions. And normally, like Laura said at the very beginning, Laura's client, you had 6 sessions with him. This is very, very common in executive coaching, 6 to 8 sessions. And so within, of course, discovery session, when my client and I decide whether we continue working together, but then already in the next session, I have to decide, okay, so which model do I follow? What is important here? And then I try to go there, but trust the process. Trust the intuition, and most of the time it works. Open to questions.
Okay, let's wait for the questions to the end. So
Okay.
we're going to get all of the questions. Thank you very much. Let's recognize.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Hey, Sunny,
Let's
you're
invite
awesome.
now to Gaurav to do his presentation. So I'm going to ask Sunny and Laura to keep your microphones in mute. So now we have Gaurav. We can see you here. So let me briefly introduce Gaurav. As I said, we met a few years ago in Singapore. He is an executive coach. He has worked in many companies globally too. He is a very active leader, and I have the opportunity to participate in his program. They have a radio program in India, invited leaders from all over the world. And then he was my guest in my radio program. And by the way, before I forget, I interviewed 3 of them, and their interviews are available. You can download them from the internet, from my website. Sunny talked about executive coaching. Gaurav talked about the case study. And Laura's session was in Spanish, so I'm going to invite her to come back to it in English. So you can access, and she will explain the model that you saw before. It's a model that she developed herself using different kind of warriors to understand leadership. It's a really nice model. So I am going to invite Laura going to be coming to talk about that. So Gaurav, anything else that you want to say about you before you start?
That's good enough. I just want to express my sincere gratitude to you for this wonderful opportunity to be on the same panel where 2 beautiful and established coaches are already there, Sunny and Laura. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank all the participants for taking time out and be here listening to me. So yeah, thank you so much. Now I can see all the beautiful faces. Thank you so much, Damian. All right. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, so I know considering I've got 10 minutes, I will try and keep it very, very interactive. Let me share this story with you. This is a story of a lady. Just imagine yourself that you're working in an organization for almost like 12 years. You're working really hard in the retail sector. And every day you invest as if you really want to grow in the same organization. And having worked in the same organization for 12 years, suddenly you realize that the position that you're longing for would be fulfilled by somebody outside the organization. The same thing happened to a lady. She's actually grown in the organization. She's working with the most established and the most credible brand in the country into retail sector. And one fine day, she realized that how somebody has actually questioned her dreams and asked us to stop dreaming and be wherever she is. It was very tough for her to digest whatever was happening with her. And suddenly the HR started evaluating her performance and realized how, on one hand, when she was progressing, and suddenly with just one shift where somebody has joined the organization as her boss, the very next day, her performance started going down and down and down. For a moment, step into her shoes and ask yourself, how would that make you feel? That in just one day, your dreams have actually paused for a while. How would that make you feel?
Frustrated.
Frustrated. She was exactly frustrated. And that's where I was involved.
Depressed. Hurt. I'm hearing here people say hurt, depressed, angry, demoralized,
not engaged.
Disappointment as well.
Precisely. That's a human being's natural response to what happens. And that's where HR involved me in. And before I could actually make any frame around this lady, let's call her P. Before I could make any frame around P, I said, let me just go and meet this lady. So I had the opportunity to meet P. And then I said, I would also like to meet her boss. So let's call him J. Now, J is a very, very established leader. He was 42. And this lady is some 3-4 years elder than him. So when I met both the people, I realized that how both the human beings are so precious and so beautiful. So on one hand, P is a beautiful lady, very hardworking, very aspirational. On the other hand, J is a killer. He is absolute accomplished person who has actually again grown from the from a very basic and humble background. Now the challenge is the way she is looking at him, and he does not know what she is treating him the way she is treating him. So he has got no clue. But the way this lady is looking at him, as if he's the one who is the reason for not letting her achieve her dreams. So the conversation began like that. So it was parallelly, I was coaching both the individuals. So on one hand, Jay was working on her own responses. So the moment when we got deeper in the coaching interaction, it was like 8 sessions for one and 11 sessions for the gentleman, 8 sessions for P. So when we got really deeper at Jay, then that's where I realized that how she has started looking at Jay as if he is the reason for that, without realizing that the position that she was longing for, she is not yet ready. So we did some intervention, the first and the second. After second conversation, she realized that how the way she is looking at him is the core reason why she is retaliating to every single conversation he's getting into with. She's getting into with Jay. So we got really deeper and realized that how she needs to work on her response and the way she looks at him. One thing during this conversation, I realized that how the more I keep coaching models away from any interventions, the better it becomes. And this reminds me of one of the interviews which I had with Sir John Whitmore, and he says that how coaching is the most natural form of conversation. If you trust people 100%, they will prove you right. And if you don't trust them, they will still prove you right. And when I got into conversation, on one hand, I was dealing with P's interpretation, P's perception of Jay. On the other hand, I was just working with Jay, where she needs to relook at himself and see that he's not the reason. And whatever is happening for him, around him, he's not even responsible for that. And yet he needs to lead the role and play the role of a leader. And the role of a leader is just to be present with his team members. So on one hand, when P was working with her values, on the other hand, Jay was working on himself, that how best he could be a support to him. And Jay started working on that. And while Jay was working, and these two different stories are moving on parallelly, when Jay was working, on one hand, he was giving more space and more space and more space. Within very short span of time, he had incredible relationship with the other team members, and yet he was not able to break ice with P. Now look at the dilemma that he was dealing with. On the other hand, Jay was working on her values. P was working on her values. And this lady went really deeper, where she could see that what really triggers that is every time when Jay speaks to P, what triggers is the moment she starts looking at him as a threat. So the moment we change the perception that Jay is not a threat to P, but a collaborator, and together they can further strengthen the team, it worked well in her case. On the other hand, look at the beautiful side. When I got into a deep conversation with daughter which she has adopted, and the moment I asked her what's so unique between her daughter and P, he told me that even P does not have parents. And that's where I could actually link the value system. In the 8th conversation, the best part was when he did something where he said that I would like to go really deeper. And that's where the transactional coaching became the transformational coaching, ladies and gentlemen, where he wrote a mission statement about himself, that how he would like to work with girl children. And he wrote a mission statement about him. And from that coaching conversation onwards, everything transformed. Everything transformed. He started a new initiative in the organization called Kanya. Now in Hindi, Kanya means girl. And the first person he got in touch with is P, where they collaborated. And when they collaborated on something where they were not competing with, everything transformed. what I realized is if we can bring together, when there's a conflict between two people, the learning for me was when we bring together two people for a common purpose, everything transformed. And when the common purpose is linked with the basic values. So the coaching conversation, when I got into both of them, what I realized is what really transforms everything is, rather than coaching people at the transactional level, because that's where we as human beings deal with. That's the farthest we can look at, right? When job is not working, he's not supportive to me. Now this lady is not supporting me. Now the things are not moving the way we would want. So what if we could really transform the way people look at things, and if we could actually help them look at the deep values and really go deeper and look at the purpose statement, that's where people collaborate. I am very sure you would have heard of the kind of situations which are prevailing in India these days. Yeah. 5 days back, I got a message from Jay where these days he's actually fighting against the child molestation cases which are happening these days in India. And he had the photograph of him with his daughter in the front cover of a newspaper. And that was really touching for me because it all started from the purpose statement. And then I said, let me just call this guy. I called Jay. I said, Jay, what all is happening? And he said, Gaurav, you know what? Everything is going really well. The 8th conversation that we had, where I wrote the mission statement about my life, transformed everything. Now I've got better relationship with P, and just to share with you that even P has got promoted. So that means what she was perceiving that he's a threat, and after the conversation everything changed. Even she got promoted to some other location, and where this guy is still steering the project called Kanya, where they are working today. They are working with 420 girl children, and he's fighting against the child molestation case which is there in one of the cities in India. So on one hand, this initiative, the parallel coaching conversation, did not only help to resolve the issues that this boss and subordinate had, but also helped this gentleman to create a mission statement for himself. That's it. Any questions?
Very, very inspirational.
Thank you.
Wow.
Different case, aren't they? So I am sure that people here have a lot of questions, like I do. So let's turn on the lights so we have a little bit more light here.
Amazing. It's amazing, Gaurav. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to start a dialogue, and probably you want to ask questions between each other too. But let's get here our guests to see what questions would you like to ask our panelists. Who would like to start? Okay. Can you come closer so they can listen to you? So wait. So because the microphone is in the computer, so when you have a question, you need to come closer.
Okay,
yes.
good.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I would like to have more conversation about coaching models and what that means to all of you. What they are, how you use them.
Okay, thank you. So coaching models, if everyone want to share basically what coaching models do you use, or if you use any particular models in your practice. Do you want to start, Laura? Do you want to start briefly?
Okay, I can share with you. Coaching models, they are nothing else than a kind of mindset you have to approach a situation and to approach the case that someone is presenting to you, and a way to make your intervention in coaching. So it is a kind of a map that helps you go through a purpose and to achieve a kind of goal. So you cannot be completely blind when you listen to a client. And I think that Son, she was also expressing it very, very interesting in her case, that you listen to the case and then you think what can help this person, depending on the kind of situation, in the kind of problematic or conflict this person has got. So there are different ways to approach the same and very different ways to achieve transformation. The important thing is to have those models like a kind of in the back of the head, and if they help, you use them, and if they don't help, you drop them off. Like it's kind of a toolbox. I don't know if you want to say something else on, or Gaurav.
Yeah, I think let's hear Laura and Gaurav about if you use any particular models or how do you use them. Sunny, do you want to go next? You need to take out your microphone.
Am I on? Yes, I am on.
Very much on.
There is one general coaching model that I'm sure that all coaches are using without even realizing it. Is the funnel. When you start collecting the information and then you go narrow, 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 and then it drips into the results. So this is the funnel model that is, I would say it's a must. And then, yes, that's, I have said it, and Laura has said it earlier. So the coaching model will be sort of a roadmap also. Imagine yourself on a trip. You start a trip with taking out a map. And then you look at it and you say, oh, there is a highway between LA and San Francisco. I don't remember. Is it number 5, which is like goes very fast? But there is one, going along the coast, which is a little bit slower, which is windier. There are scenic routes. This is how coaching model depends on how many sessions you have also. Whether you are going directly, that's so that the most important, the goal has to be identified at the very beginning. Then you see how much time you have, and whether you take highway, it's like, this is where we're going. In executive coaching, that happens very often because it's 6 to 8 sessions, the most that we get. Not much time that executives can give us on one particular session. I always say that I am reachable by email between sessions. I had 1 or 2 clients only who reached me by email between sessions, but the scenic routes is actually, you can do the deviations, because coaching is, you don't coach the issue, you're coaching the person. And if we're coaching executive, like with my case, Renee is the head of the office, but Renee leaves office to go home on Friday to a Muslim family, and she's still Renee, being a mother and a daughter and a wife. And you're coaching a person, and this is when you are taking a scenic route, and maybe there is a scenic view when you go and maybe you look back, or what is it that we're carrying? Maybe some luggage we need to unload. Maybe we don't need it in our final destination, but for that we need to slow down. So it's like a roadmap.
Thank you, Sunny. It's a great metaphor, for the work. And what she's saying, that we coach a person, not the situation, what we call the what and the who. People have heard that before. So, Gaurav, what models do you use?
It's a great question, and very often I come across this question, Damian. Thank you so much for asking. Let me ask our audience, how many of you play any musical instrument here? Can I have show of hands?
Musical instrument who play?
Many people. How many of you are artists here? Any art that you do, calligraphy, painting, anything? So we have a good group of people who are either into dramatics, or who are into playing drums or musical instruments or painting. When I got into calligraphy, my master taught me few strokes. And I said, why do I need to learn all these strokes? But because I'm here to learn calligraphy. And he said, no, you need to learn basic strokes to learn calligraphy. I said, all right. I did not understand that. I said, let me just trust my master. Then I went to learn drums, and he said, this is how you actually hold the sticks, and this is what you do. Tick, 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 tock, 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 tick, 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 tock, tock, tock. I could not understand that as well. I said, let me just follow my master. And then I had the opportunity, as I just shared with you, to interact with several master coaches, including Sir John Whitmore, Janet Harvey, and many other master coaches. And I did ask them the same question: what is the importance of any model? Any model is, as what Sunny and Laura said, just further adding to that, it's a basic framework that we follow. Now, unless I know basic strokes, I cannot be a good painter. I cannot be a good calligrapher. Unless I know the basic tick, 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 tack, 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 I cannot play drums. So even if I know that coaching is, as ICF defines coaching, that it's the partnership between the coachee and the coach to help an individual fulfill his personal and professional dreams and aspirations, when Sir John Whitmore says that coaching is the most natural form of conversation, you still need where the person is to where he would like to be by creating awareness and having him have that self-responsibility. We need to have the basic where, to where, and how. So in order to address these three questions, that's where a framework comes into a picture, a basic model comes into a picture, which is always that like, okay, I'm here to actually get into that partnership with somebody, and I have the weapons and the tools.
Thank you.
Which could help the other person.
This is a great summary. Let's recognize three of them for the answers. And here we have, in this audience, we have people who are very experienced coaches, people who are studying now coaching, people who are thinking about becoming coaches. So we have to be in different places. And the idea with tools, as I don't know if Laura talked about the toolkit. It's like as coaches, we have a toolkit where we have different models, we have different distinctions that we can recognize, we have different tools, assessment tools, we have different things in the tool. But at the end of the day, the most important is who we are. It's not what we do, but who we are when we're working with our clients and how we build that partnership that Gaura was talking. So over that, you build everything else. So Keith, we have a past president of ICF LA. Thank you for being here. So Keith was the president of the chapter when I was in the board of directors. Before going to global, I was involved in the local chapter and I was great serving under you. So great seeing you here.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you. My question for you is, when Laura's client he really wanted coaching and he got really great benefits. And when Sunny, with her client, Stefan wanted coaching for somebody else who's the manager. So my question for you is, when somebody else wants coaching for somebody else on their leadership team, say there's 3 people that are equal executives, all in the C class, but one on that leadership team is kind of faking the coaching thing. They show up, but it's always about others being changed. In your global experience, how do you enroll somebody without being overly aggressive when you see that they don't have a buy-in for the process?
Who would like to take that question? Sunny?
Keith, you're absolutely right. Stefan's office and Stefan himself hired a coach for Renee, for the head office. So 2 senior managers in the organization. Renee was a little reluctant at the very beginning because she saw herself as failing because of the reputation of somebody who gets a coach. Because my experience, it's only in the United States that I was paraded as this is my coach. In Germany, I go into the office, I sit there, wait for my clients, and then my client leaves, and then I leave. This is like clandestine meeting. I know. I mean, this is... and I'm all dressed up for that. So this is what happens. Keith, this is very, very, very good question. And this is why at the very beginning I do have a discovery session to make sure that, yes, we can work together. And then we will talk about the commitment. But the next session is with the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are those who hired the coach to make it clear is what is expected. Why is the coach there? And then also with the coachee, for coachee to understand this is for support. And this is, even if Stefan in his initial email said to me, I trust Renee, I know there is a big potential and everything, I wanted him to say the same thing in front of her to me, that she understands this is not punishment. This is not the last measure for the HR to sign her off and out. This is real trust of the organization to invest into a coach. And this is not investing in me. This is investing in her. How do my colleagues do that?
Great point. Laura, do you want to say something?
Yes, it's something similar. Actually, here in Mexico, working with German companies, I actually learned from the German companies this system of having this first session with the stakeholders and talking the things clearly and direct. The Germans tend to have this very direct communication instead of, like, in difference to the Mexican way, which is much more going around and not saying the things right. So in Mexico, it happens very often that the bosses or the general managers want to use or to manipulate the coach so that the coaches go and tell the people what they don't dare to talk direct. So this is one of the main things I always do, that when they start saying, and look how he dresses, and look, he's having so long hair, and then they are expecting me to go there and tell them to cut their hair. So I ask them, why don't you dare to talk to him directly? What's the obstacle, no? So people have many fears when facing direct communication. And by doing that, you help the boss and the stakeholder stand and tell their really thoughts. And many times the coaches say that it was the very first time they hear in a clear way the expectation from their bosses when we sit in the very first session. So this is something important. And at the end, the whole system changes. Just by this person being in coaching.
Thank you, Laura. Gaurav, do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I'll quickly say two things. One is I do something what Sunny just spoke about. We do something called chemistry meet here. And also what I really do is I get into a three-way conversation where I will have the coach. So in my case, I would be the coach. I would have the coachee and either the business head or the HR head. So I make sure that everything that we are discussing is so transparent.
Yeah.
Now, how it really helps is it gives a sense of relief to the coachee that I'm not a spokesperson of the HR or business. I am a separate entity altogether whom he can trust. And that's the first step that actually helps me to build that credibility and trust and rapport with the coachee. And I think that transforms everything. In the next conversation, when, further adding to what the question was, that in case the person is not willing to accept, at the end of the day, deep down, human beings, they know the improvement areas, the development areas that they have. And the moment they come across somebody they can really trust, people show up with all the vulnerability. And people are willing to trust you. And that's what actually helps to create that bond between the coach and the coachee and gives birth to the partnership that ICF speaks about. So it's all about creating the partnership on the foundation of trust, rapport, and the credibility. Yeah. So the bring transparency and it transforms everything.
Thank you for bringing this up, because what is interesting that even though they are from different parts of the world, there are some foundations that are the same for everyone, isn't it? Yeah. There are some things that are universal. So thank you for
Damian, excuse me, can I say something here?
Of course.
Because Gaurav mentioned the word trust, and I forgot something. One of the core competencies of ICF in coaching is confidentiality. Confidentiality, because in that stakeholder meeting, I make it very clear to actually my client, but who is not my coach, of what will be reported about. I mean, it's not about the session, it's about the progress, but it's very, very, very clear that also the coachee hears that everything that is happening between two of us will remain. And I also say, and I say that to my client, that I do not take notes. I actually do, but after the session. I never take notes during the session. I take notes after the session because with several clients, you just forget sometimes. But nobody knows about them. It's actually a black book. There is, and I have it in my desk, and it's it is very, very important to create this trust, confidentiality, and I remind this at the very beginning of each session and at the very end of each session when we go about the takeaway. What is your takeaway? The client says, what's the takeaway? And they say, well, thank you very much, and you remember that everything remains here. What I write in my book is what the homework is. Some reflection, some questions, something for myself to remember where I left it. So to start from there, but nothing to report.
Thank you, Sandy. We have a question.
And beautiful audience, it's a secret. Don't share it with anyone.
Yes, by the way.
Yeah.
What the comment that I want to make is that in these three cases, there was a challenge, and sometimes was a performance challenge. But many times now in executive coaching, coaches are called not only when there is a performance challenge, but when things are working well, and they want to prepare people to work with the strength to prepare for future opportunities. So we want to think in terms of executive coaching that it's not only for cases when there is a challenge with the coaching with the client, when there is a challenge or a problem. Coaching also can be used to work with the strength, to work with successful people who want to prepare for future challenges or to prepare to be even more effective. But I want also to bring this because these cases were particularly where there was a challenge, where the coach did an intervention and it was an outcome. But I want everybody here to also pay attention to that. That coaching is not only working with executives for cases when there is a challenge or a problem. So, John.
Okay. Hi. This question is mainly for Sunny. I wanted to ask you, seems like when you guys were, when you were working with your client, there were several personalities that you were working with and also identities, and with languages, with the work, and with her life and with her family. I just wanted to know, what was it that you did to integrate all that and then help her be more authentic and come as one so that she is who she is in every environment like that. So that was very interesting. I wanted to know.
No, you're on mute. Sunny, you're on mute.
There you go.
Well, that's a very, very, very good question. And that is why I immediately thought this is where we need to get to the authentic person, where really I am. And that is why when I realized, I asked Renee if she speaks English. She wanted to be coach in German, and her German, indeed, of all her foreign languages, is the strongest, besides French, and French is more of a native tongue. But the second foreign language, English, was very strong. But she said, okay, I want in German, fine, we'll do that in German. You want that in German. But I needed to get her that of the mindset. And what I brought her to realize that when we speak a different language, for example, when I speak English and I do a lot of trainings and I come in and we're having fun and we're doing this and let's do that. And I'm coming in with all the energy because this is how the audience, or this is how the language is set up. I go and do that in German and I do it completely different, not because I'm performing, but because this is what I know. This is now, let's bring back to the structure. We talk about statistics, we talk about the references, we show that we know the experts, we read the books and all that stuff, and now let's get down to business, and this is what we're doing. And of course I'm bringing in myself. Now it is to bring Renee to the point of where is it that herself, and if she speaks German, what is it that she thinks that she is expected to produce. In other ways to say, we constantly, when just look at yourself, you know that you are in a classroom, and then maybe some of you want to stand up right now, but no, you know that you're supposed to sit. And you know that there are people there and talking to you, so this is what we're doing. We're sitting. Some of you maybe want to talk. Somebody's leaving the room. Hello. But we constantly behave. And this is good because we are grown-ups. But what was important is to bring Renee to the point, where am I behaving and what is really me? And when she's going back home, and yes, there is a conflict with 93-year-old mother, and she goes, I am the head of the office, I am all of it, and now suddenly I am like this, within half an hour drive from the office back home. And then there is a husband who goes, Ramadan, why is the food not ready? She has 2 maids, and they were doing something else. And she goes, so why is he asking me this? Because this is, and I'm saying, wait a second. So what is it that you are bringing from something? So when you are at home, there's something that was put into the subconsciousness, probably. It's a little bit more of psychology, but let me do it very briefly. What baggage are we carrying? Are these underlying values? Are they serving you right now or not? So all of this bringing to the surface, and the main tool, of course, are the questions. Because if I start telling her, because of course having the experience, we kind of, I give you the case and you are very experienced in life and you kind of have already an idea what's going on. But if I start telling her, or you start telling her what's going on, and she's like, really? But if you bring this out in her words, this is the real her comes out. And this is where all these different identities merge into one. Where am I really? What am I really standing for? What is important for me? Have I answered your question?
Thank you. A couple of more questions, Julia? You want to come closer here? We will have time for a couple of more questions before we wrap up.
Hello, everyone. So it sounded like a lot of the coachees that you had to adapt to another culture, and they were struggling with that. I wanted to know from the perspective of being the coach and coaching someone that may be in a different culture, may have different beliefs and values ingrained in who they are. What challenges have you faced in coaching people around the world? And how has that changed your basic coaching approach when coaching someone?
Great question. Who would like to start? Laura, do you want to start, or Gaurav?
Yeah, I would like to address this. Yeah, may I, if you permit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. This is a very interesting one. Okay, so let me share this with two case studies. One is I'm coaching somebody, he's a French, settled in India with a different culture altogether, and he's a Muslim. So that means he already has two cultures. One is a Muslim culture and the second one is a French culture. And he's staying and working in India for the last 6 years. That's one case. Second case is, if you travel from the north of India to south of India, there are two different cultures. Now, the initial struggle, so there were some initial struggles when I started coaching 8 years back, and then today also I have some other struggles. Now, the initial struggle was to get into the shoes, and when we call it the empathy, and get into the coaching position. That how you will find something what your coach is telling you as sheer irrelevant, and then you will realize that how you're wearing the hat of a coach and the coaching position is so neutral. So there's an initial deep struggle that I used to go through as what I personally feel is irrelevant and what is really relevant. For somebody who is of French origin, and when he's getting and trying to understand the Indian culture, for me it's very easy. But for him, it's a different culture that he's getting into. So my initial struggle was how to maintain that coaching position, which is very, very neutral, and not letting my own culture, not letting my own color, not letting my own thought process, not letting my own perception dilute the coaching conversation. So that's the initial concept, the initial challenge. Now, how did I get out of that is just keep working on myself. And as I don't know what conversation, it's an opportunity for the coach to grow and be a better coach. And when I'm saying a better coach, it's like you already have, let's say you already have a coin in your hand, right? And it has got some mud. So what you'll do is you'll pick up that coin, dip into the water, shake it and bring it back. And then you realize that how it's cleaner. Again, you will dip the same coin in the water and bring it back. It's cleaner. And that's what happens with each coaching conversation. We become more neutral and cleaner. And the more you are cleaner, that's the gift that you can offer to your coachee, a neutral position. which is the competency number 4, coaching position. That's the most impeccable gift that you can offer to your coachee. How to create that? By creating more awareness and confronting yourself that this question came from ego. Either it came from your ego, or that did it come from a sheer intention to support and create a distinction for your coachee. That's one question I ask myself. Was I authentic in the coaching conversation? It helps me to get better, not only during the conversation, but after the conversation as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's hear Laura. Laura?
Wow, after he said, I have little to say, which is different, because I truly think that only embracing all those polarities that inhabit us, we are able to understand people who suddenly are in a polarized or in an opposing direction. And when we tend to defend or to justify or to think we are right and they are wrong, then the very first question we need to ask is, who inside of me is thinking this? Who inside of me is judging that? And what do I need to own, which is disowned? What do I need to accept and embrace inside of me? Because the problem is not his position, but is inside of me. So I truly think that transformation in clients can only happen if we are able and open to be transformed ourselves. If I do not have a personal development, I will hardly reach the goal of helping another be transformed. It can only be in this mirror principle. So this is what I would say about this.
Thank you, Laura. Is anything else that you want to add, Sunny?
Actually, I do, because the question, it's actually one of the challenges was in the question itself, because the question sounded like your clients want to adapt, and this is very good word, adapt, because sometimes the clients are adjusting, and this is where the challenge is, to support the clients in aligning themselves, their authenticity, their values, to the cultures where they are, rather than adjust, because the moment you're adjusting, the client will, at some point, there will be a clash. So I like this adapt, and this is a very, very well chosen word. When an American goes to Germany and they go, oh, we like bratwurst and everything, so I can do it like this. But that's not the point. That's not the point to do it like the others. The point is indeed the golden rule of empathy. And this is adaptation. How do I adapt or bring my own values, being respectful to the host values? That's it.
And the challenge there is you can do that without losing your authenticity. Like, for example, when I met Sunny last year in Berlin, I had to do 3 trainings in Germany, and I needed to adapt to the culture. So I was told I need to be more like a professor. This is expected me, and people who know me, I am not kind of a professor when I am teaching. So I had to adapt without losing my authenticity. So it requires some flexibility. Yeah. And so one last question. Who would like to ask that last question? Jonathan, get here closer. So
hi. This question is first for Laura, but I'm sure the others have ideas. The Viking went through some really emotional anger management issues that are usually viewed by clinical psychologists as their domain, and coaches have nice, clear boundaries. So what additional personal development experiences did the Viking go through that enabled him to deal with those internal issues? And for the others, what in general additional experiences beyond the coaching relationship do you find your clients need?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This client is a very intelligent guy, and he likes very much reading. So he was reading and reading and reading and reading a lot of support literature while we were in the process. Books that he found in Amazon, like it was not things I gave him, but he was choosing and searching and reading. So he started his own journey because he was committed to himself. And what else did he do? Like, I think the main thing for him, like, was this getting separated from this Viking self that he was over-identified with, to be able to separate, to talk with him, to see that it had only been a kind of warrior strategy to get defended and to survive in a situation that he felt it was the best possible way to survive. He found the origin of that behavior, and he found the origin of that Viking inside of me. Like, he got alive when he was about 12 or 13, that he had been suffering from bullying from people where he was living. And so he had this amazing contact from the very beginning of the time when this voice or this warrior got to life, the way he developed himself and what he was forgetting from himself. So one of the main transformational parts was in one, I think it was the third session, when he got in touch to something that he had promised himself when he was about 11 years old. He had had an experience, and someone from his family said to him, "I hope that you never lose your happiness, your freedom, and your easygoing way of being when you grow up." And he recalled that in the session, and he said, I want to go back to that happy person I was able to be. So awakening those selves or those inner voices that had been gone through all kinds of repression or disowned actions were fundamental for him in that personal case. So this is what I wanted to say about it. And the second question, you said a second question also?
The other question was the similar question for Sunny and for Gaurav in terms of how to deal with this transformation process. And Laura doesn't have any background in psychology. Her background is in communication. Is that correct?
Yes, I did a training in bioenergetics and body therapy, and in some Gestalt also.
Okay. Let's see, Sunny.
I'm on. Well, there. Laura has mentioned already the journal. I find journal is a very, very powerful, profound tool in development and personal development. But the journal, not like what is happening to me. I asked to write what are the emotions for some executives, especially of technical companies, because then it will come in the corporate culture or professional culture into this. It's difficult, but to identify the emotions. So if I'm frustrated, I'm angry, what is it that? And then one little little note, what triggered that. So this is one, and this is more towards the tool. However, what is the transformation? Remember, we are coaches, we're coaching, we're talking to people, moving them forward. We're not therapists. However, we do need to have some step back and look at it, what is happening. And with my client, with Renee, when she said that I'm standing in front of my boss and he goes, so too much information. And she goes, I'm freezing. I'm just frozen. I can't even talk. And I asked her, yes, when was it the time that you felt comfortable to deliver the message that you wanted to deliver? What was it that's going on? To bring her to that space. The other thing that I did with Renee, also going back, is with her mother. Because it is very important to discover the underlying beliefs. What is it there? Keeping in mind we're not therapists. We cannot wallow in it. We cannot stay with it too long. We need to move the client forward. But we need to have the client aware of what is happening. Damian said that, yes, my background, for example, in international business banking and finance and cultural anthropology, the bachelor's, but especially for this purpose, because I do not have the training in psychology. I did the special university course of emotional intelligence in leadership, because without certain training in psychology, actually, I would think something would be lacking. So even if there is no formal training, a lot of reading needs to be done. But yes, taking courses, and this is where the professional development, because this is another core skills for ICF. We constantly continue our professional development, and then we bring it to our clients.
Great point. Gaurav, do you want to say anything else before we wrap up?
Both Sunny and Laura has already spoken about journaling. Another thing that has really, and in fact, there is somebody who's right now, he's working on his relationship with the organization. So he has moved from Singapore. He was the senior director HR for one of the companies. Now he has moved back to India and heading the people domain, people vertical for this organization. So he's not very comfortable with his relationship with the organization. He's working on three things. One is journaling part, so which both Sunny and Laura just spoke about. Second thing, which he's 200% aware of, is his language patterns, the kind of words that he's using in his language. So when I asked him, just be aware of his language pattern, this is one thing that he's taking care of all the time. The third thing is, there's something called Kar Seva in Hindi. And Kar Seva is when an individual works either in one of the temples or one of the temples in one of the temples he works. And what he does is, unconditionally, without having any intentions to get something back, he serves that temple. It could be as simple as taking care of the mud or taking care of the bricks in that temple. So they are the three things that this guy is doing. One is journaling, second one is being aware of his language pattern, and the third one is the Kar Seva. And when you bring everything together, you create that magic. You bring the transformational change at the very deep level, at the transformational level, rather than knowing at the transactional level. So thank you. That's it.
And may I say just one last sentence?
Yeah, let's wrap up by getting everyone to say something for closing. Anything that you want to say to close the session today?
Okay, so for closing the session, I would like to say that the real transformation comes when you stop trying to be like someone else, like your brother, your sister, your mother, your boss, and you realize that you have your own gift, and those gifts you carry with them since you were born. You discover your own gift and you start being yourself without masks, without playing games. That's the real transformation. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here with you, and hope you enjoyed as much as I did the session.
Yeah.
Well, I would say basically staying in the same line. It's you. You are I understand we are with the audience of current coaches and aspiring coaches, experienced coaches, and coach is also, for me, is a lifestyle. And when we talk, and I do leadership coaching, right? But the leader or anyone, it's the authenticity. But we cannot even support anyone at being authentic if we are not authentic ourselves. So it is also our task to work on ourselves. It is also our task to remember where we are. And we talked about the journal. I can't say that I'm doing it every day, but at least take 5 minutes. I meditate. So something that we need to remember, that we are there too, what we are bringing ourselves, because this is the presence. This is another core competencies, the presence. But when we're doing about presence, so what is it that we're bringing to the presence? And as in Laura's language, I would say, so which gifts are we bringing to this situation? So I would say coaching is a profound experience as for a coachee, but also for a coach. Each session is like, wow, you learn something about yourself. I learned something about myself.
Thank you. Thanks,
And thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, so this reminds me, I got an opportunity to interview a lady called Edna Murdoch, and she runs an institute in UK called Coaching Supervision Academy, CSA. And in her book, she has written, "Who you are is how you coach." I would repeat, who you are is how you coach. That one statement changed the way I used to look at coaching. And then I was asked to speak in one of the conferences, and the organizers asked me to speak on coaching, and I spoke on being human. So coaching for me is like being human. So I would say fall in love with life. Life is incredible. It's magic. It's so beautiful. Fall in love with yourself, and fall in love with something called being human. Yeah. So I would like to share this with each one of you present here, that I say to everyone I meet. I say to everyone I meet. So this gives an opportunity to speak and express my expressions to all the wonderful people on earth. So I say to everyone I meet that I contain a part of you in myself. And even you contain a part of me in yourself. So thank you so much for your contribution to my life.
So what I want to share with them and with you is that I have been in many events and activities that ICF Chapter has organized over the years, and I have been part of many chapters all over the world. And being honest, I think that this is one of the best activities I have ever participated in. Yes. Thank three of them. So let's recognize three of you. And I would like to ask one volunteer to thank them in the name of the whole group here. Somebody who would like to thank them and tell them something that you would like to, because we cannot get everybody, but one person who would like to say something to them so they can get back a comment from you. Who would like to do that? Yes. We have Felice here.
Hi, my name is Felice. I love the cultural competencies that you're talking about. I myself, I'm an expat Brit living in the US, and even though you may think there's not too much cultural difference, there's a lot. I think what you have said has been enlightening and insightful. We have an eclectic group of people here, and clearly you work with an eclectic group of people yourselves and have great personal insights. And it's been a wonderful experience here, and I don't feel like I want to talk on behalf of everybody here, just myself, but I could feel the energy in the room, and I think we've learned a lot from each of you and about your approaches, and the fact that you're not only working with individuals and companies, but you're also working with yourselves, and that certainly resonates. So thank you all so much for being with us today. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
So thank you again in the name of ICF Los Angeles and the Center for Nonprofit Management who organized this event. I want to thank three of you. We're going to make this video available through the ICF LA website. In some way, we need to find out how we do it, and through our website at the Center for Nonprofit Management. And also, will be a way for you to get in contact with them. If you want to follow up, if you have any questions, we're going to make that happen. And we want to invite people who are graduates from the program from past years, people who are in other programs, like we have people here from Kaiser Permanente, from USC. If you want to stay, we're going to have an activity. If you can stay for 1 more hour from 15 to 11. So you're welcome today. And for everybody else, thank you for being here.
Thank you all for coming. We hope that this was worth your time. And look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, guys, thank you very much. It was a great panel.
Yes.
Thank you, Damian.
Thank you, Damian, for inviting us.
Let me say goodbye.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
For giving
Thank
the
you so much, Laura. Thank you, Damian. And